What's going on, everyone? So it looks like the Kevin Durant saga may be coming to an end, and it's the Miami Heat that is looking like they may cross the finish line. Now, obviously, there's several teams still in the mix. The Houston Rockets, reports came out earlier today that Houston is kind of willing to call Phoenix's bluff and expects them to eventually drop the price. Phoenix has not been happy with the type of returns and packages that they have been offered in a return for Kevin Durant. So it's kind of like that, good old-fashioned blinking game, right? Like, who's going to blink first? Which team is finally going to go, okay, fine, I'll pony it up. Obviously, the San Antonio Spurs, their team, still very much could be in the mix for a potential Kevin Durant trade. Minnesota appears to be out because Kevin Durant basically shot down any potential of a trade in that regard. They were even working on a 3-team trade. Talked about it full in depth if you want more details on that. But essentially Kevin Durant was like, nah, I ain't going to Minnesota, right? So, which I actually think might be one of the best places and destinations for him. However, Kevin Durant heading to the East Coast, going to the Miami Heat, could be right around the corner. There's just one thing kind of holding it up. So let's get into it. So this is per Brett Siegel. Teams around the league believe the Miami Heat are close to the finish line in acquiring Kevin Durant, may need to add Khalil Ware to the package to finalize the deal. Although the two sides are not right at the finish line yet in trade talks, one player can get them there, and that would be Khalil Ware, a rookie standout in Miami's front court, who is a giant with a 7'4" wingspan and two-way potential. If the Heat include Ware in a revamped package to what they have already offered, talks with the Suns will reach a whole new level, as he is the player Phoenix wants in discussions with Miami. So again, according to these reports, always take this stuff with a grain of salt, right? Nothing's done, nothing's finalized, nothing's finished until it actually is. I mean, we've even seen trades get to the finish line, pen to paper and everything, and end up getting vetoed and shut down and all kinds of stuff, right? So until that's actually finalized and finished, keep that in mind. However, it really boils down to how badly does Miami want Kevin Durant, right? Are they willing to pony up Khalil Ware, who was fantastic for them as a rookie last year. And then to have Bam kind of slot in at the 4, he was kind of playing a new role, taking more threes, right? They were trying to see if they could make that work. But there's also questions of Bam best as your 5, right? So do they look at it and go, okay, we could still have Bam be our 5, right? Adding Kevin Durant, slot in Kevin Durant even at your 4, and then you have kind of Bam, KD, and Tyler Hero as kind of like your 3 main guys that you're kind of building and going forward. What other pieces are included? Because it's not just going to be Khalil Ware, obviously. Andrew Wiggins, is he in the deal? I would imagine just for salary purposes, Andrew Wiggins is probably in the deal for Kevin Durant. So my guess is it'd probably be a package kind of centered around a Khalil Ware as well as Andrew Wiggins, plus what other players, like does Jaime Jaquez get involved? Jovic, right? Like, does any of those guys kind of get involved in this potential trade? As far as Kevin Durant to Miami, I mean, there's a couple things about that. One, the East is wide open, right? Obviously, Indiana, I fully expect to be back there next year, whether they win the championship or not. Obviously, we're getting a Game 7. Really excited for that, just as like a basketball fan. But beyond that, the Boston Celtics, they appear that they're kind of, at least going to be in a hiatus year. A lot of talks about a Jaylen Brown trade and a Derek White, and they're shopping Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. So, I mean, they might kind of sell the farm and kind of retool this thing around a Jason Tatum, in a year or two. So if they end up kind of selling the farm, that could potentially take them out of the conversation and the equation. And then you look at, obviously, Cleveland, I imagine, isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And then, you'd have still the New York Knicks, who I don't imagine would be going anywhere anytime soon. And Orlando, right? The Orlando Magic already were a quality team last year. They just added Desmond Bane, who is huge for them, right? Kind of gives them exactly what they need with that team and that roster. And then, if Miami is one of those teams that can land Kevin Durant, they could be right there in that mix as well. So does Miami look at this as like, hey, this might be our opportunity and shot, right? This might be the chance that we have to kind of go for it and maybe potentially be in an NBA Finals again and win an NBA championship, right? Like, is this our opportunity where if we get a Kevin Durant and we have a Durant and a Bam Adebayo and a Tyler Hero as kind of our core and foundation, like those are the guys going forward. What other guys can you end up keeping? What other moves do Miami make? I don't know if Kevin Durant by himself makes Miami a like true contender. Again, the Eastern Conference is wide open. You get the right kind of set of circumstances, the right matchups, the right dominoes to kind of fall. All of a sudden, could you be in the NBA Finals or the Conference Finals or something like that? Sure, of course, right? But, like, is Miami going to be looked at as a top, 3 to 5 team in the NBA just by adding Kevin Durant? I don't necessarily think so, but again, who knows? One, it depends on what's going out in this trade. What kind of package are you making? Are you able to keep like a Davion Mitchell who's really good for you, just kind of give you some depth? Are they able to turn like Duncan Robinson into some stuff, right? Like, how do some of these core pieces? It really would boil down to, okay, what's left after this essential trade, right? After this trade is done, what are you left with? And are you still left with pieces to maybe go make another move or two to now maybe put you over the top? Now be one of those teams that is really in the mix and conversation. I mean, don't get me wrong. A Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, and Kevin Durant would be fantastic. But you still need more than that, right? Like you need, like, who's going to be your point guard depending on, again, on, the situation. I don't think you need like this true playmaking point guard, but ideally you need a guy that can come in and initiate, right? Maybe if you can keep Davion Mitchell, maybe he can be that initiator and then point of attack, like defensive type of guard for you alongside Tyler Hero, right? You're going to need another wing depth, right? Is that Highsmith? Like, who is that? Are you maybe able to keep Andrew Wiggins in some capacity, right? Are you able to maybe work out a deal? I don't know how that would necessarily work, but point is like, what are you left with? Are you going and trading for Kevin Durant? And you're kind of left with scraps. Now, to Miami's credit, they've done a really good job of finding those diamonds in the rough. The Heat culture and standard, finding players that can elevate and just play a role that other teams just miss or aren't as good. These players aren't as good on these teams. Go to Miami and are able to elevate. You have an excellent coach. You have those things, right? I like Kevin Durant in Miami. Don't get me wrong. It's not my favorite and preferred place. You can make the argument just because of the Eastern Conference. It might be the best place for Kevin Durant because it might give him the best chance and opportunity. Plus, Miami, they don't play games. If they can go for it and they can win, then they're going to go for it and win. So, he'd be going to an organization that is about winning. He'd be going to an organization that has the culture and standard. He'd be going to an organization where he'd have other players and pieces, right? Tyler Hero, what kind of strides does he take going into next season? Bam Adebayo, right? Can you shift? It would suck to lose a Khalil Ware, but I think you'd be fine, right? Like, again, you got to pick a direction if you're Miami, right? Are you going for it? And are you looking at this as like, hey, this might be our window, this might be our chance? Or do you want to kind of stay the course of this youth? If that's the case, then stay the course of the youth, keep Khalil Ware, maybe put a Bam Adebayo on the market, right? Put him out to see what you can maybe get in a return for him, right? Because, again, you see a lot of these teams that kind of want to have 1 foot in, 1 foot out, kind of do the hokey pokey thing. And just more often than not, that doesn't work, right? Like, you got to pick a clear direction. Are you trying to win? If so, go get Kevin Durant and then do whatever you have to do in order to make that push to win. Or are you trying to kind of retool this, revamp this, and rebuild this with, centered around Tyler Hero, who, he's still 25, so he's still very much young. So he won't be 26 till midway through next season. But you look at a guy like Bam Adebayo. He's 27. He'll be 28 next month. So he's not getting younger, right? Not that he's old. He's on the right side of 30. But again, you don't have 5 years to figure this out. Now he's 33. And it's like at that point, you were better off trading him in his prime when you could have gotten the compensation and assets and all that stuff and kind of retool and revamp and keep Khalil Ware and build around Tyler Hero and keep a Jaime Jaquez and a Jovic and all these guys, right? Like, stay that course, stay the youthful route. There will be other windows, there'll be other opportunities. You'll find those guys, you'll be those diamonds in the rough, but it just depends on, again, what else do you have to give? Like, if you give up Khalil Ware, can you keep some other stuff, right? Do you work out maybe a 3-team deal to where maybe you're getting another piece or two? Maybe you're getting something else from Phoenix, right? Like, it doesn't have to necessarily be a Kevin Durant for these guys. Maybe you can work some other stuff out. Maybe you get a 3rd team involved in and maybe Phoenix is like, hey, I really like some pieces here. Miami's like, I really like some pieces here. Hey, you want an Andrew Wiggins, or hey, you want this, or again, get creative if you need to, right? Try to maximize what you can maximize in order to put you in the best position possible. But I do think that there are several. Like, I think if he wants to get the best chance to win right now, I do think Minnesota is a team that really kind of presents that opportunity with an Anthony Edwards. They've been to 2 conference finals, right? Can you maybe pull that off? But he clearly doesn't want to go to Minnesota, right? For whatever reason. I've heard, several reasons, right? Even just like the weather there. And look, that could very well be a possibility. He has that right. He has that. He shot down the trade and doesn't want to be there. So Minnesota's basically backed out. You have a team like Toronto that might just swoop in and just sign him. Now, something else to keep in mind. The reason you see teams like Toronto and some of these other teams that seem to be willing to pony up what is necessary to land a Kevin Durant is because whoever goes and signs Kevin Durant or goes and trades for Kevin Durant would have his bird rights. So they could give him more than he could get anywhere else. And because of his age, right, going into that new contract and certain restrictions and stuff as far as longevity contracts and money and all that stuff, right, that could pose an issue of him out on the open market, not to mention how many teams actually have the money to sign him outright to 40, 50 million, right? Not many teams are going to have the cap space in order to do that. And, what is he going to go back to Brooklyn? Probably not, right? So there are a lot of teams that are looking at it and going like, let's just trade for Kevin Durant and call his bluff. What, are you going to turn down the money? You going to leave? Right, especially if they're good, especially if it's a team like, because I do think Toronto does make some sense for a team like for Kevin Durant, right? Like I do kind of like that interesting pairing of Durant with Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram, right? Those 3 guys, a lot of length, a lot of size, a lot of versatility there. Obviously they need some other pieces. Supposedly they're going to trade a Jakob Poeltl, so what are you going to do with your center position, right? Like there's definitely some questions, even in a Toronto trade or some of these other teams that might come out of the woodworks. Who knows what other team is secretly, plotting and waiting behind the scenes going, haha, like just wait, right? You saw that with like Cleveland and a Donovan Mitchell, right? The Knicks swore that they were getting him, right? All the reports, everything was like, he's going to the Knicks. And then what happens, right? Here comes the Cavs who swoop in and go, hey, we'll take our chances. And they were able to convince him to stay, right? So, there's. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a team that comes out of the woodworks. That's why nothing is done until it's done. We thought, Donovan Mitchell was done and headed to the Knicks, and then all of a sudden you look up and he's a Cleveland Cavalier and still a Cleveland Cavalier, right? So, I definitely think that there are still teams that are probably going to be in the mix. But if Miami is willing to give up Khalil Ware, supposedly they could land him. And he would be in a Miami Heat jersey, which I think that could be very interesting. Houston, I still stand by. I think Houston, if they want him, they can get him. They have Phoenix's picks, right? They have young players that would make sense for Phoenix. Houston could put together the best package for a Kevin Durant that would satisfy Phoenix as well as still maintain and keep kind of the key core guys. So Houston, I still think if they want him, they'll go get him, which this could just be leverage for a Houston trade, right? They could be, this report and news could be out there to kind of maybe get Houston itching a little bit, right? That's a very real possibility. That's something you definitely got to keep in mind. But we'll see again how this all plays out and, where he ultimately ends up. San Antonio, I still think, makes a lot of sense, and I'd love to see him in San Antonio with Victor Wembanyama. I think, Wemby could learn a lot from Kevin Durant. But at the end of the day, it's up to, I think Kevin Durant does have a significant say. Obviously, look at what happened with Minnesota, kind of backing out of it because Kevin Durant was like, I don't want to be there. So, I've talked very heavily about like, hey, Kevin Durant still has a say, right? Yes, Phoenix has told him, hey, we're going to trade you to the best package. But again, Kevin Durant can make things uncomfortable. And not every team is willing to just like, hey, let's pony up assets and do whatever we have to in order to do that, right? So keep that in mind too, right? If, a team like Miami, which supposedly he wants to go to Miami, but, if he's like, I want to play with Khalil Ware. I don't want Khalil Ware there. Like if you trade Khalil Ware, I don't want to go there, right? Like, that was something Kobe did with Luol Deng in Chicago. Right. So again, sometimes there are things that player just goes, hey, wait a minute, wait. That's not what I envision when I said I want to go to Miami. Right? So there again, Kevin Durant has some maneuvering ability. But as always, this is a discussion, so let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos. I truly appreciate it. Now subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.